Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer. A name etched in the annals of criminal history, forever linked with unimaginable horror. Born on May 21, 1960 in the quiet suburbs of Bath Township, Ohio, his entrance into the world was deceptively ordinary. The neighborhood was serene, a place where children played freely and families seemed content. Yet even in these seemingly idyllic beginnings, a darkness stirred. His parents, Lionel and Joyce, struggled to reconcile their differences, their arguments echoing through the halls of their home. The constant conflict created an environment of tension and unease. Their tumultuous relationship cast a long shadow over their young son's life. Jeffrey often found himself caught in the crossfire, his childhood marred by instability and emotional neglect. Even as a child, Dahmer exhibited a disturbing fascination with death. He would spend hours alone exploring the woods and fields, drawn to the lifeless forms of animals. The macabre called to him. He collected animal carcasses, meticulously preserving them as if they were precious artifacts. Roadkill became his morbid trophies, each find adding to his growing collection. With chilling curiosity, he would dissect these creatures, exploring their insides with an almost scientific detachment. His interest in the macabre was not just a phase, it was a deep-seated obsession. This unsettling interest in mortality, coupled with the instability of his home life, planted the seeds of something sinister. The darkness within him began to grow, unnoticed by those around him, a seed that would eventually blossom into a terrifying reality. The ominous clouds of his future were already gathering, a reality that would shock the world with its brutality and depravity. The name Jeffrey Dahmer would become synonymous with terror. The boy from Bath Township was about to embark on a path of unimaginable horror, a journey that would leave an indelible mark on history. As Dahmer grew, so did his isolation. He was often seen alone, a shadow of a boy who seemed to be fading into the background of his own life. A palpable loneliness clung to him, like a dark cloud that never lifted. His eyes often reflected a deep, unspoken sadness. He drifted through the halls of Revere High School, a ghost in a crowd. Social interaction eluded him, and he became more withdrawn with each passing day. He found solace in his morbid hobbies, dissecting roadkill and immersing himself in fantasies of control and domination. These activities provided a twisted sense of comfort and control. His parents' marriage finally crumbled, leaving Dahmer adrift in a sea of emotional turmoil. The constant fighting and eventual separation only deepened his sense of abandonment. He sought refuge in alcohol, numbing the pain of abandonment and rejection. The bottle became his escape, a way to drown out the chaos of his life. The line between fantasy and reality blurred. His mind became a labyrinth of dark thoughts and twisted desires. His fascination with death morphed into something more sinister, a desire to possess it, to control it. The allure of power over life and death consumed him. The world saw a quiet, awkward teenager. To his peers and teachers, he was just another face in the crowd, unremarkable and easily overlooked. But beneath the surface, a storm raged. A storm of dark fantasies and unfulfilled desires that threatened to break free. A storm fueled by loneliness, repressed desires, and a growing obsession with the power of life and death. It was a tempest that would soon unleash unimaginable horrors. The boy who once collected animal bones was about to graduate to a far more horrific subject, human life. The darkness within him was ready to erupt. The summer of 1978 marked a turning point. It was a time when the world seemed to be brimming with possibilities. Yet for one young man, it was the beginning of a dark and twisted journey. Dahmer, barely an adult, claimed his first victim, Stephen Hicks. Hicks was a hitchhiker, just looking for a ride, unaware of the fate that awaited him. Lured to Dahmer's home with the promise of alcohol, Hicks became the first to succumb to the monster lurking beneath the surface. The encounter seemed innocent enough, but it quickly turned sinister. The act, brutal and calculated, marked the beginning of Dahmer's reign of terror. It was a moment that would forever change the lives of many and cast a long, dark shadow over Milwaukee. Over the next 13 years, Dahmer's bloodlust spiraled out of control. Each passing year saw him becoming more emboldened, more ruthless, and more detached from any semblance of humanity. He preyed on young men, often on the fringes of society, their disappearances barely noticed by a world oblivious to the horrors unfolding in Dahmer's Milwaukee apartment. These young men, many of whom were marginalized and vulnerable, became easy targets for Dahmer's insatiable hunger. His methods were chillingly consistent: drugged drinks, a struggle, then the cold embrace of death. Each victim was subjected to the same horrifying routine: a testament to Dahmer's meticulous and remorseless nature. But Dahmer's depravity went beyond murder. His twisted desires drove him to commit acts that defied comprehension, acts that revealed the depths of his disturbed psyche. He sought to possess his victims, to make them permanent fixtures in his twisted world. He meticulously documented his atrocities, creating a macabre collection of memories that only he could understand. He photographed their lifeless forms, dismembered their bodies, and preserved their remains. Each act was a grotesque ritual, a way for Dahmer to exert control and maintain a connection to his victims. He even engaged in cannibalism, a gruesome attempt to absorb their essence and erase the boundaries between himself and his victims. This final act of consumption was perhaps the most chilling, a desperate bid to make his victims a part of him forever. Dahmer's apartment became a shrine to his macabre desires. The stench of death permeated the air. A refrigerator once used for ordinary groceries became a chilling repository for human remains. Skulls, bleached and carefully arranged, adorned his shelves like grotesque trophies. These were not mere souvenirs of his crimes, they were tangible manifestations of his need for control, his desperate attempt to stave off the crushing loneliness that consumed him. Each victim, transformed into a macabre object, represented a fleeting moment of connection, a perverse attempt to conquer his isolation. He documented his crimes meticulously, photographing his victims in various stages of dismemberment. The Polaroids, stark and disturbing, offered a glimpse into the depths of his depravity. They were a testament to his chilling detachment, his ability to compartmentalize the horror he inflicted. In July 1991, Dahmer's reign of terror came to an abrupt end. Tracy Edwards, a potential victim, managed to escape Dahmer's clutches. He alerted the police, leading them to the charnel house that was Dahmer's apartment. The gruesome discovery sent shockwaves through Milwaukee and beyond. The evidence was overwhelming. Dahmer, confronted with the undeniable proof of his crimes, confessed. His detailed account of the murders, delivered with a chilling matter-of-factness, shocked even the most hardened investigators. His trial, a media spectacle, captivated the nation. Dahmer's chilling confessions, coupled with the horrifying evidence presented in court, painted a portrait of a monster. Yet, even as the world recoiled in horror, questions arose about the systemic failures that allowed Dahmer to operate for so long. Found sane and sentenced to 15 consecutive life sentences, Dahmer was incarcerated at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. Life behind bars offered little solace. He was a pariah, reviled by fellow inmates and haunted by the magnitude of his crimes. In prison, Dahmer found religion, a desperate attempt to find redemption for his sins. He expressed remorse for his actions, acknowledging the pain and suffering he had inflicted. But for many, his apologies rang hollow, a feeble attempt to atone for the unimaginable. His time in prison was a living hell. He lived in constant fear, subjected to threats and assaults from other inmates. The man who once exerted ultimate control over his victims now found himself at the mercy of a system designed to punish. On November 28, 1994, Jeffrey Dahmer's reign of terror finally ended. Not by the hand of the state, but by the brutal act of a fellow inmate. Christopher Scarver, driven by a desire for vengeance, bludgeoned Dahmer to death with a metal bar during a work detail. The news of Dahmer's death was met with mixed emotions. Some felt a sense of grim satisfaction, believing that justice had been served. Others questioned whether his death brought true closure, or merely added another layer of tragedy to an already horrific saga. Dahmer's death, as brutal as his crimes, did little to answer the questions that lingered. It provided no solace to the families of his victims, their pain still raw, their lives forever scarred by his actions. Even in death, Jeffrey Dahmer continues to cast a long shadow. His story, a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity, has become a morbid fixture in popular culture. Books, documentaries, and films attempt to dissect his psyche, to understand the motivations behind his monstrous acts. The recent Netflix series Dahmer Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, reignited the debate surrounding his legacy. While praised for its unflinching portrayal of Dahmer's crimes and its exploration of the systemic failures that allowed him to operate for so long, the series also drew criticism for its graphic content and its potential to re-traumatize the families of his victims. Dahmer's story serves as a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about societal biases, the failures of the criminal justice system, and the enduring power of evil.